Hello, my name is Amber Nichols-Buckley, and I am a lecturer in the Department of Writing and Rhetoric at the University of Mississippi. And this is my presentation on Right Here Now, Contemplative Practices in First Year Writing. So I became interested in contemplative pedagogy about a couple years ago. I'd been in therapy myself and had been practicing MSBR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction. I noticed how wonderful it was in my own life with helping me cope with high levels of stress and anxiety. And I started to ask questions about, if this were so helpful for me, could it also be helpful for my students? And so that is what sort of got me on this journey. Since this is a presentation on mindfulness, I thought that we could have a moment to do a 5-minute body scan so that we can practice one of the things that I would use in class, which is a kind of loving kindness meditation and something that I might do at the beginning of class just to kind of center students and get them prepared for the day. So if you are willing to participate, I'm going to play a little background music. And if you would get into a nice mindful posture, I tell students to try to have a straight back, but don't put too much pressure on your back. Plant both feet on the floor. This helps you to feel the earth holding you up, helps to ground you into place. You can place your hands in your lap, palms up. And if you're comfortable doing so, you can close your eyes. If not, you can just focus on a point in front of you. Now let's focus on our breath, bringing our attention to our chest and belly. Let's take 3 deep breaths, challenging ourselves to make our exhales slightly longer than our inhales. Today, to help with deep relaxation, we're going to do a brief body scan. Start by guiding your attention to the top of your head. Feel your scalp tingling. Move down the face, softening your forehead, your eyes, your jaw and mouth. Feel gratitude for the mind that's housed in this space, the mind that helps you gain and share knowledge about the world, others around you, and yourself. Move your attention to your shoulders, your chest and belly. Concentrate on the sensations in this area as you breathe in and out. Feel gratitude for the heart that's housed in this space, the heart that helps you feel deeply, helps you empathize with others, the world, and yourself. Move your attention now to your limbs. Feel the sensations in your arms, your hands, your fingers. Feel gratitude for this space. It helps you do the good work of the world. Move your attention now to your seat, your legs, your feet and toes. Feel gratitude for this space as it grounds you and sets you on a path you wish to go. Now, take your attention to your body in this space, in this place and time. Feel gratitude for the reasons that brought you here. And as we end our session together, let's practice loving kindness by repeating these phrases silently as I read them aloud. May I be safe, protected, and free from all harm. May I be happy and healthy to the fullest extent possible in this moment. And may my path before me be wide and clear. As we finish our time together, you can come back into your body by wiggling your fingers and toes, maybe doing some small movements to wake yourself back up. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So that's an example of a loving kindness meditation that I might do with students at the beginning of class. And then afterwards, we would use some time to reflect. Now, the reflection prompt might be based on our meditation, or it might be based on something that's going to prep us for the class today. For this example, if you want to pause our video and take a moment, you could journal briefly about anything that came up during that mindfulness session. Whether it was your ability or inability to focus or be in the present moment, just your family, your life experiences, anything that kind of came to mind. Feel free to pause this video and take some time to reflect. Now, after we have a reflection time, if we have a little time in class, I teach on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we only have 50-minute classes. So we don't always have time to share, but I do like to take a moment to allow students to share before we move into our day. If you see here on this presentation, which is also linked in the speaker resources so that you have access to this presentation and all of the hyperlinks and resources that I provide, you will see a 5-minute breathing exercise that I've embedded here from YouTube. You notice I led that meditation. Believe me, it took me years to feel comfortable in actually leading a meditation. When I first started this work, I would use the Calm app or YouTube videos to lead, and I would actually participate alongside the students. Now I tend to lead those meditations because I've practiced it for so long and I feel comfortable. But I will say there are some teaching days when I actually need to participate. I can tell that my anxiety is high, and so I will sit and do one with the students. So YouTube is a great source for finding a lot of these meditations. Okay, so what is mindfulness in the classroom? This is a link to a resource that really defines this well, but I will sum it up by saying mindfulness in the classroom is any activity that encourages students to be in the present moment instead of living in a constant state of distraction over past and or future worries. We know that our students are distracted, and we know that their stress and anxiety is increasing and has been increasing, especially since the pandemic. Many of us are dealing with students who have experienced extreme loss, may have experienced hardship, and may just be wobbly coming out of the COVID era, even today. And so mindfulness in the classroom is anything that has them stopping any behavior that could be distracting and bringing themselves back to their bodies so that they can focus their minds and move forward in the work. But for more resources, you're welcome to click on that. Click on that hyperlink in the presentation slides. So why add mindfulness to my already full plate? I have 5 major units in a 14-week semester, so I have very little time to get a lot done in my first year writing sequence. But this is work that I believe in because of the following reasons. And notice too, all of these reasons have hyperlinks to resources that will share more information, studies about mindfulness and some of the benefits. I also share a lot of these resources with students, which helps them to see the relevance of why we have these practices in class. But if you're seeing students who struggle with focus, if you see students who have a difficult time empathizing with other people or listening to others and or communicating with others, if you see students struggling to manage their stress levels or struggling with mental health issues like anxiety and depression, mindfulness can help with all of these factors in different ways. And some of the ways in which I think it helps, especially for my writing class, is increasing empathy. Students, if I can help students to increase empathy, and if all of us can have an increased empathy with how we look at the world, then critical thinking is easier. We can listen to each other. We can disagree with each other in healthy ways within an academic setting when we actually empathize with the other person. So I think that has helped. And also things like focus and attention, especially when our students are coming to our classes with so many distractions, not just what's happening in their personal lives, but actual technology distractions. So their phones that are sitting on their desks and constantly alerting them, even using their laptops during class, and maybe they have multiple tabs up, watching multiple things, how mindfulness can center us again and help us refocus on the task at hand. The beauty of mindfulness and contemplative pedagogy in the classroom is that students are not the only ones who benefit from this regular practice. The teacher can too. The professor benefits as well. All of us are also overworked. We are often running rampant with committee work on top of our teaching responsibilities, on top of grading, on top of our families and personal lives. And so our minds may also be distracted during class. And so mindfulness is also a moment for the teacher to check back in with themselves and focus in on the present moment as well, instead of being pulled in so many different directions. And here, where it says you can too, you can see a link here to some of the benefits for faculty and for teachers in contemplative pedagogy. So all of this sounds great. And I know it's like, oh, that just sounds lovely, but what does this actually look like in a classroom space? So I'm going to share that from my personal experience, but my experience is certainly not your experience. And I think that the best thing to do is to start small. And I'll suggest that at the end of this presentation. maybe start with one thing that you're trying with your students, and or maybe don't even start it in the classroom, just start it as a practice for yourself and see if it's something that you think could be worthwhile for your students, because for it to work, you definitely have to have a buy-in to it yourself. So up here it says, what does mindfulness look like in the classroom? This is a link to more resources that you can use than the ones that I have listed here, which these are the ones that I use the most in my sort of day-to-day with my writing sequence. Meditation before journaling, for me, that happens on Mondays. Again, as I mentioned before, when I started this work, I often used meditation apps or YouTube, but as time went on, I became more comfortable leading them myself. 5 senses writing activities can be super helpful in grounding us in the present moment. You can, without doing a meditation, you can just have students think about their present moment experience. What are you hearing? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? What do you feel around you? What are the things that are distracting the eye? So having them do these kinds of things can center them as well, and can be really fun reflection activities. Breathing exercises, you can research a number of them. One of my favorites is box breathing, and on YouTube you can get some really great visuals for box breathing that you could just, if you had the equipment, you could project on the wall and have students go through a sequence of box breathing before class starts. And that doesn't take very long, so they could do 1 minute of box breathing before you kind of move into your lesson for the day, just as a centering activity. Mindful eating exercises. So these tend to be my students' favorite. In first year writing, I use some of the pieces from Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird, some instructions on writing in life. And one of my favorite ones to use is the essay on school lunches, where Lamott gives writing students an exercise to write about their old cafeteria school lunches and what all the senses were like. So what the smells were like in the cafeteria, what kind of food they ate, what the feelings were inside of them as they navigated these sort of social hierarchies within a cafeteria. And then I have students bring a favorite snack from like a lunchbox snack, and we do a mindful eating exercise where we take it very slowly and we write about all the sensory aspects of that snack. So from the packaging to the rhetoric used within the packaging, so images, text. I make them wait a long time before they actually get to open it. And then once they open it, they have to like smell it and do all these things before they actually taste it. And so just slowing them down brings them into the space. And what they end up noticing is that when they do slow down and when they make these writing exercises more sensory, what they'll find is they have so much more content in their writing that they can work with. So those can be really fun. Mindful listening exercises. I have a link here to one of my own meditations that I've used with students before a peer review that really pushes them to empathize with other student writers who are, really putting themselves out there, and how sometimes I pull from the poem Vermilion by Linda Payson, where it says the revision is the purest form of love. And so we kind of talk about bringing that level of empathy to working with your peers' work during peer review. We do some silent walks, especially on beautiful days around campus that lead to reflective activities. I especially like to do these at the beginning, actually not a silent walk, just a regular nature walk with students toward the beginning of a semester as a community builder. And then at the end of the semester, when students are doing final reflections, doing a silent walk and having them kind of contemplate where they have come as a person and sort of their personal growth from a start of a semester to the end. And those can be really meaningful. Mindful movement exercises. We tend to do these on Fridays as sort of a fun way to get into a Friday, which can be hard for everyone. You can find a lot of these on YouTube as well if you don't want to lead them yourself, but things like facial massage for headaches, chair yoga their favorite this semester so far is inverted meditation, which is where you lie on the ground and prop your feet up on the wall and go through meditation that way. So these are just some of the exercises I use, but there are so many that might be better adapted for your classes. This just looks specifically at what I do, which I've kind of gone over some of these, so I'm not going to repeat myself here. Most of my longer meditations, like the one that I did at the beginning of this presentation, those happen on Mondays, and we call them Mindful Mondays. And it's just a great start to the week. But we don't have enough time in a 50-minute class to do a meditation each day. So I try to build in shorter practices on Wednesdays and Fridays, things like mindful movement exercises or box breathing or a breathing exercise, just as like a quick, let's check in and then get rolling. What I do have here, though, are links to two of my assignments that have intentional contemplative kind of elements to those assignments. One is a 101 research argument paper that includes an exercise where students mind themselves for potential research questions. So things they know that they are struggling with, or things that they have curiosities about as far as how they move through the world. We do a lot of preliminary work on kind of researching me and then developing research questions out from that. And these can be especially meaningful post-pandemic, as a lot of students are really thoughtful about themselves and the things that they're struggling with, especially as we all sort of come back into this academic space after being isolated for so long. The Canvas as Text analysis assignment. This assignment is for an analysis unit, and it's where students go to some space on campus and do an analysis of, whether or not that space has been designed effectively for the target audience. This is a fun assignment too for analysis because it does get us up and out of the classroom and onto spaces on campus, which can be excellent. Now, the contemplative part of this is we do a silent observation element. So to demonstrate how to observe, we all go to one specific place, and it may be different based on the semester. And we sit in that space silently and observe from sort of a sensory perspective. So what are the things we're seeing, the colors, the text that we're seeing in front of us? What are the things we're hearing? How are we seeing students move through the space and utilizing the space? And who is like easily invited into this space and who seems to be left out of this space? And by making it silent, they're not as distracted. So they're sitting down, practicing how to be silent and just listen. And it ends up being a really nice day when we come back together. We talk about all of the material that we gain just from a simple 10-minute silent observation of the space. Last year, I wanted to get some research, get some data from students about whether or not these contemplative practices were helping them. And I was pretty overwhelmed by the positive results that I got. So just to explain what I did a survey. So I teach the same students for Writing 101 and 102 through a program called the Fast Track program here at the University of Mississippi. Students are cohorted, and they often live in the same dorm, and they take a couple of the same classes, and those classes are smaller so that there's more one-on-one interaction with the professor. The program is intended to help with retention rates for out-of-state students and students who are Pell eligible or low income or first gen from the state of Mississippi. And the beauty of this program is that I get to keep students for the full writing sequence. So I see them from fall to spring. And it's also rife with opportunity for collecting data, especially first semester versus second semester data. So I gave surveys at the end of fall 2020 and at the end of spring 2021 to kind of gauge how their feelings change from or some of the things I was looking for in particular throughout the year. So you can see here that their comfortability with mindfulness rose from 44% to 73% just by doing it regularly with me in class. Their feelings of burnout decreased from 87% in Writing 101 to 56% in Writing 102. That one is particularly impressive. Because we all know that we struggle with burnout. I think we struggle more with burnout post-pandemic. And then their stress and anxiety decreased from 93.8% in Writing 101 to 83.3% in Writing 102, which is also great. It's not necessarily a huge jump, but any way that we can help to relieve some of the stress and anxiety happening at the student level, I think it helps students, but it also helps them feel more engaged in our classes. One interesting piece that came out of the survey is that their struggles with procrastination actually increased due to, from Writing 101 to 102. And there could be a lot of factors that go into that, including just being more comfortable too with me because they have me for both semesters and maybe taking more risks that way. But I would love to mine that a little bit more, why I saw that increase there. Here are some of the quotes that I wanted to share with you based on this mindfulness work and what students were saying specifically. And so here a student said, being mindful and actively participating in the journals, answering questions about my own self and mental health helped me to get my thoughts out and feel relieved. I think being in a good place mentally is crucial to our academic success as students. So I love this because the student is seeing the intersection of mental health and academic success. Our goals, we call them intentions because we're working with contemplative terms, but we set intentions, one academic, one personal, and one social for the semester, each semester. And then every 2 weeks or so on Mondays, we come back to those intentions and we check in with them, how are you doing in that? And all of that with the goal that they will start to see that when they are working toward their personal health in whatever way it may be just to drink more water, or to meditate, or to participate in a spiritual community, or whatever personal development they're doing, that if they're doing that and they're having a positive experience socially, they tend to also do well academically. But when something is missing, emotionally, or personally, or socially, it's hard to make friends, then academics can also suffer sometimes, of course, not all the time. So having them kind of coming back to that throughout the semester and really reflecting, how are my academic, social, and personal identities intersecting here, I think just helps build critical thinking and more reflective and contemplative students. This student said, to be honest, I wasn't that open to the mindfulness experience, but I do believe that there is a power to practicing healthy mental exercises. I think it was more just my own mental block with those kinds of things, so it didn't have a grand effect on me. I love the honesty of this student here, and it's not going to reach all students, which is what I'm going to talk about in just a minute. There will be students who are hesitant to practice mindfulness, or just don't believe that it actually works, or whatever. What I love about this student is he sees it as a mental block that they have. And you never know, it may have planted a seed that the student can use later when they may be experiencing high levels of stress, and they can come back to meditation or mindfulness as a potential resource. So things that could go wrong, or things that need to be considered when we're thinking about these contemplative practices. One of the best ways to deal with hesitant students is starting the year off with inclusive classroom practices, which I've hyperlinked my own here. Now, these practices I have framed, well, situated within the framework of our university's mission statement and sort of code of values, but also other inclusive classroom practices that are important to making classrooms a safe space for every student. So we start with that expectation. And then the best way is really sharing the benefits of mindfulness practice so that they're understanding why you're doing it. It's not just to have a fun, quiet 5 minutes at the beginning of class, but that it can have lasting impacts on their academic success and their, personal stress levels and things like that. We do a lot of reading of these articles, especially at the beginning of the semester. Some students end up researching mindfulness, which is not at all a requirement in our research unit, but they become interested in it throughout, or they might just become interested in mental health topics because of the work we do with mindfulness early on. I also include an entire slide in my syllabus on why we do it and share multiple resources about how it can be helpful. I'd also make it fun for them, especially early on. It's okay that they laugh, when you're doing it, especially when you start out. It's okay for you to laugh along with them. It can be awkward to do at first. So just being open to their hesitancy, I think can go a long way. And then another way to push past that embarrassment or just not being familiar with mindfulness practices is to just make it routine. If they start to see it, the first couple of weeks, you might hear giggles, you might have a student stop in for office hours. Why are we doing this? And you can explain that, obviously, but the more you do it and make it routine in class, it becomes routine for them too. And they will come in sometimes asking for it, even if we don't have time to fit it into a day, because they come to almost depend on it, after a while. What about students with learning disabilities? Because that hasn't really been addressed here. The research field is young on this, but there are studies that suggest that students, especially with ADHD, attention deficit disorders, benefit from regular mindfulness activities because of that, kind of situating them in the present moment, helping to reduce hyperactivity and inattention. So there's a linked study here if you are interested in looking at more information there. Here are links to my favorite mindfulness resources. Where I started was the Center for the Contemplative Mind, which is hyperlinked here. They have multiple resources available for free for educators in every discipline and at every level. So K through 16 and beyond, and also for people within multiple disciplines. There's plenty of writing and rhetoric pedagogy in the journal for the Center for the Contemplative Mind, and I encourage you to check that out first. As a writing teacher, the Contemplative Practices in Higher Education, Powerful Methods to Transform Teaching and Learning by Barbazat and Bush. I've purchased that book. That was one of the first ones I purchased. I go to it often. And it is also interdisciplinary, so it's not specific to the college writing teacher necessarily, but definitely has plenty of insight into how you might start these practices within your own classroom. The Calm app. I use the Calm app personally. You do have to pay a subscription for the Calm app. This is not an advertisement for the Calm app. I wonder if you reached out to their business, if they would offer, discounts for teaching resources. I'm sure they might. But because I use it myself, I often bring it into the class as well. They have a series specifically for college students that I think can be very helpful. And I think there are 5 or 6 meditations on, just transitioning to college life and some of those stressors, how to deal with procrastination, those kinds of things. So I appreciate the Calm app. And of course, YouTube, all free, and you can find so much meditations, mindful movement activities, any of that sort of thing. Now, I say if you're interested in and don't find it too cringy, I have also hyperlinked some of my own guided meditations for some of the things that I use in class. So I have here meditation on burnout, generating curiosity, peer review, and setting goals. But these, of course, are more specific to my own classes. But if you ever want to go in and listen to them, you are welcome to and kind of see how I framed it, especially early on. My last bit of advice is the best way to get into this is to start your own mindfulness practice first. In order for you to see what's going to work well for your students, because you know your students, you need to have buy-in that it works for you too. And I assume because you've listened to my presentation, this is something that you already believe in and know can work. So that's where you have to start. And then you can let kind of that understanding of yourself and your students' needs guide you to the next step. If you have any questions about mindfulness or any of these resources, again, anything I've shared with you is shareable with other people. You're welcome to use any resources hyperlinked in my presentation. And you're also welcome to email me at asnichol@olemiss.edu. Thank you so much for your time, and let me know if I can help you with anything moving forward.